In the near future, an unknown virus outbreak will engulf the world in an endless disaster. Infected humans have turned into fierce zombies, losing their rationality and only having a desire for flesh and blood. The once bustling city has now become a place of death, and surviving humans have engaged in an endless war with zombies for survival. Chapter 1. Outbreak, Global Crisis. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What happened? A man got up from the floor in a daze, weakly leaning on the sofa, vigilantly observing the surroundings. He only remembered pushing the door home, but being knocked unconscious from behind, and then he remembered nothing about what happened afterwards. He touched the back of his head and pulled out a clotted blood stain. It seemed that the person was trying to kill him, but he never expected that the man would wake up. The man struggled to stand up from the ground and limped open the bedroom door. The scene before him made his stomach churn, and he saw a dirty man tearing at his wife's flesh. He couldn't help but vomit on the spot, and his voice startled the crazy man in the room. His eyes were bloodshot, and he opened his big mouth and rushed towards the man. The man was scared and immediately closed the door, pressing against him, but he was weak. How can one's body compare to a crazy man? The crazy man pushed open the door and was pinned to the ground, trying to bite his neck. The man tried hard to resist, but he used his hands to support the crazy man's chin. This way, his physical strength could not last long. He had to find a way out of danger, but there was nothing nearby that could be used. As the man gradually accepted his fate, the door was pushed open, and a backpacker stabbed through the crazy man's head with a wooden stick, blood staining the man's face below. "Don't let blood enter your throat," the backpacker kindly reminded me. The man was still in shock, trembling as he pushed away the crazy man who was completely dead. He looked frightened and stepped back, unable to believe that he had died alone in front of him. Although he was just attacking himself. "You killed him." The man swallowed a mouthful of saliva, afraid that the backpacker would also kill him. "He is no longer human, and there are no more people in this city." The backpacker is very puzzled. It has been 3 days since the end of the world erupted. How could anyone not know that the order of the world had already collapsed? What? The man obviously doesn't believe the backpacker's words. The backpacker pulled open the curtains, and the sky outside was lifeless. The streets were filled with people who were no different from crazy men wandering aimlessly. They gathered around him when they saw him, and in his astonishment, they tore off the man's lower body, greedily gnawing on him. All of this starts with that heavy rain. The backpacker introduced the man to the beginning of everything. 3 nights ago, there was an unprecedented heavy rain that lasted until noon the next day. People thought it was just an ordinary rain, but they found that the color of the rain was not right. It was actually dark brown, and those who were drenched in the rain had mutated, causing the situation to spiral out of control. The backpacker briefly recounted how the great disaster arose, but he ignored the fact that the door behind him was not locked, and the man was still sadly looking out at the scenery. No one noticed a zombie walking behind the backpacker. "Hello, my name is Ming. Nice to meet you." The backpacker is fortunate to still encounter living people in the apocalypse, and he wants to form a team with men to live together in this apocalypse. "Hello, my name is Gwen." Gwen also reported his name. He accepted the reality of the world falling and understood the need to live in groups in the apocalypse. Surprisingly, it's a zombie. The zombie bit into Ming's face, and half of his face was chewed to pieces by the zombie. With extraordinary willpower, Ming solved the zombie. "I'll go find someone to stop the bleeding." Gwen panicked and wanted to open the drawer to find some hemostatic drugs for Ming. His wife is a doctor, so he stored some drugs at home for emergencies. "It's useless, I can't live anymore. People who get bitten will turn into zombies." Ming had witnessed with his own eyes that people bitten by zombies would soon be infected, and he begged Gwen to accompany him all the way. "Give me a ride, Gwen, just treat me as the first zombie to be killed in the apocalypse." Shi Yingming threw the sharp wooden stick with his head shaved to Gwen, and Gwen, who was still humane, couldn't bear to attack Shi Yingming. He shook his head. No, I can't do it. Gwen was still hesitating. Shi Yingming on the ground had already developed symptoms of mutation. His body was convulsing wildly, and the virus was spreading so quickly. To protect himself, Gwen closed his eyes and grabbed a wooden stick to stab him. The stick passed through Shi Yingming's head, ending his pain. After finishing everything, Gwen collapsed on the ground. What's going on in this world? Without time to grieve, he got up and closed the door to prevent other zombies from entering. Leaning against the door, he fell into contemplation on what had happened during his days of unconsciousness. Bang! A few gunshots came from outside the door, interrupting Gwen's thoughts. He looked out the door through his cat's eye and saw two soldiers wearing military uniforms solving the zombies wandering outside the door. They dragged the zombies past. He understood that seeking military protection in the apocalypse was the best option, and without hesitation, he opened the door. An officer thought it was a zombie and pulled the trigger to hit Gwen. Fortunately, Gwen was lucky enough that the bullet only brushed his ear and injured a little fur. Don't shoot, I'm a normal person. As the officer who had not been killed was about to fire a second shot, Gwen made a sound and informed the other side that he was not a zombie, and no one could guarantee that he would still be so lucky with the second shot. Seeing that he accidentally shot Gwen, the officer put away his gun and apologized. He also asked Gwen if he wanted to leave together. Do you want to come with us? We have a shelter in the suburbs where there are a few survivors. The purpose of the officer's trip is also to search for survivors in the building and to clean up the zombies. So, Gwen followed them to the rooftop, where there was a helicopter to pick them up. The pilot was overjoyed when they brought back a survivor. Li Zi, Yan Zi, you did a good job and brought back a survivor. This trip didn't come in vain. Officer Li first sent Gwen onto the helicopter. When he wanted to board, Officer Yan's gun accidentally caught fire, and the sound of gunfire alarmed the zombies wandering on the rooftop, who were rushing towards him. Get on the helicopter quickly. Yan Juanguan dared not delay and urged them to board the helicopter quickly. He raised his gun and shot the zombie cover. Come and save us. Because the zombies were attracted away by the gunshots of Officer Yan, a mother and daughter hiding in a small compartment finally had a chance to call for help. There are still survivors. Officer Yan reported to Officer Li. I see it. Officer Li also wanted to go and save, but there were too many zombies, and the two of them couldn't charge through the zombie swarm at all. Let's go back to the camp first. The two of us can't save it. Officer Li wanted to pull Officer Yan onto the helicopter, and Officer Yan spoke with righteousness and righteousness. There's nothing that can't be saved. After speaking, one person faced numerous zombies and advanced forward. Chapter 2. Life and Death Uncertain. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Officer Yan became more and more brave in battle. He wanted to protect the mother and daughter. His own daughter died at the hands of the zombies because he was on a mission outside. This time, he couldn't let the tragedy unfold again. He ran out of bullets in his magazine and drew a dagger to assassinate the zombies. At this time, he was like a wild beast, but the number of zombies was too large. He also felt weak. Although Officer Li ordered the driver to turn around, the driver didn't want Officer Li to go back and take risks. You can't sacrifice anymore, we already have fewer manpower. The driver refused Officer Li's request. When the helicopter landed in the survivors' camp, the scale had not yet expanded, and the number of survivors who were received here was also rare. Most of them were children. Gwen was shocked by this scene, and his heart was filled with mixed emotions. These children could have grown up in the classroom, on the playground, in a normal society, but the sudden end of the world disrupted their lives. At such a young age, they were separated from their families by yin and yang, which no one could bear. Officer Li had not yet recovered from Officer Yan's sacrifice. At that time, he wanted to take out a gun and press it on the driver's forehead to make him turn around. The military qualities in his heart told him that he couldn't be so selfish. In order to be an Officer Yan, he had to let the driver and the survivors he had just found accompany him back to the dangerous area. He knew well that Officer Yan could not survive the siege of zombies. He held the group photo in his hand and swore to kill all the zombies to avenge Officer Yan. Isa, a military doctor in the survivor camp, ran forward happily when she saw the helicopter landing, but did not see the person she wanted to see in her position. Where is Yan Shohong? She had a rough guess about Yan Shohong's fate in her heart, but she couldn't believe it, nor did she want to believe it. He saw another mother and daughter while covering us, but there were too many zombies. I advised him to give up, but he still held his gun and tried to break through and save them without hesitation. Officer Li lowered his head in self-blame and wept, unable to express his feelings of losing a close friend. He could only alleviate the pain in his heart through crying. Did you see him bitten to death by a zombie? Isa asked repeatedly. Gwen wanted to come forward and say a few words, but Isa turned her face and stared at Gwen with fierce eyes. Okay, sorry to bother you. Gwen wisely retreated and was taken by other soldiers in the military camp for inspection. You're talking. Isa cried and shook Officer Li. I watched helplessly as the corpses surrounded him. After Officer Li finished speaking, he choked up for a moment and quickly adjusted his state. As a soldier, he must still prioritize the masses in his heart. We don't have time to mourn, there are still so many people who need us now. Li Chunxian jumped off the helicopter, trying to look as if he didn't feel sad. Although there was too much reluctance in his heart, the outcome was like this. He walked towards the military camp, intending to see how Gwen was doing. Tao Xiaohong is conducting blood tests for Gwen. They have collected blood from zombies and found a virus that causes infection. They want to test Gwen's blood for this virus. If it does, he will be quarantined. Wait a moment, the equipment here is a bit outdated. Tao Xiaohong turned around to test the extracted blood. As these equipment models were very old, the speed of producing results was very slow. I will go to the nearby hospital later to see if there are any more advanced models. Li Chunxian, who opened the tent, suggested driving around later. These old equipment are sufficient now, but in the future, more people will need more equipment. You'd better take a break first. I know Yan Shohong sacrificed himself in this operation. Tao Xiaohong is afraid that this matter will affect Li Chunxian, and he does not want Li Chunxian to take on tasks in the coming days. It's okay, I won't affect it. Li Chuanshuan's tears had not yet been wiped away from the corners of his eyes when a pair of small hands handed over a tissue. Wipe it off, uncle, your face is so dirty. Li Chunxian took the little girl's tissue. Thank you. He doted on pinching the little girl's face. Neil, come over here and don't disturb uncle and the others' conversation. Nir's mother spoke up and asked Nir to return to bed without disturbing Li Chunxian and Tao Xiaohong's conversation. Nir obediently returned to her mother's embrace. They need me, I can't be decadent. Li Chunxian looked out the window at the survivors who were working hard for tomorrow. His words moved Tao Xiaohong, who believed that Li Chunxian had walked out of the shadow of Yan Shohong's sacrifice. You are a qualified soldier. Tao Xiaohong made a list and gave it to Li Chunxian. These are the equipment that the campsite lacks. Coincidentally, Gwen's report was also received, and Tao Xiaohong was not surprised by the result. If Gwen were infected, according to the speed of virus destruction, Gwen should have mutated long ago. Gwen was relieved that he was not infected. Let Officer Li take you to the campsite to get familiar with it. Tao Xiaohong assigned Gwen to Li Chunxian and asked him to take Gwen for a walk in the military camp to familiarize himself with the terrain here. Li Chunxian took Gwen to the wall. The defense here is still very weak, and it won't last long, so we need manpower to help reinforce the walls. I'll familiarize you with the terrain so that if the camp is breached, you can have a place to escape. Li Chunxian didn't know yet that someone would ruin the beauty here. Is this built by the military? Gwen asked this question. No, this was spontaneously built by us soldiers. After the end of the world, the military no longer exists, otherwise the facilities here wouldn't be so poor. Li Chunxian did not conceal anything and truthfully revealed the true situation of the camp. Gwen frowned and looked at the vulture hovering above his head, a bad idea rising in his heart. Are there any zombies nearby, or how do you handle their bodies? Although Li Chunxian was surprised by Gwen's question and was the first to ask, he still gave a reasonable explanation. We have killed all the zombies around here, and as for the bodies, we have all concentrated on burning them. After centralized burning, the smell of carrion on the zombies cannot attract vultures, so what attracts vultures to hover here and refuse to leave? It's time to go, Officer Li. The teammates on this trip waved to him, and Gwen grabbed Li Chunxian's hand and begged him to take him out together. Let's go. With multiple people and multiple efforts, Li Chunxian couldn't refuse, but he could see from Gwen what he was worried about. However, he didn't ask much. He drove him and his teammates out of the camp gate as if nothing had happened. After the guard guarding the gate closed the gate, a man in black quietly touched behind the guard, wiped his neck, killed the guard, sprinkled blood on the road, and opened the camp gate. Chapter 3. Short Radiance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The car of a group of people searching for instruments parked at the entrance of a hospital, which had just fallen yesterday. The blood on the ground was still fresh, and the streets were littered with zombie corpses, severed limbs behind the defense line, and blood and tissue splattered on the door. This made Li Chunxian, who had survived in the apocalypse for 3 days, feel nauseous. They carefully passed through the bodies of their deceased companions, and Li Chunxian guarded the bodies on the ground with his gun to prevent them from suddenly turning into zombies and rushing towards them. Only after ensuring safety did he let the accompanying Gwen step forward. There will definitely be many zombies in the hospital, we must be careful not to disturb them. Li Chunxian reminded the two that this place has already been occupied, and the patients in the hospital are highly likely to have turned into zombies, so the number will be very large. Never show off as a hero. This was meant for him to listen to. Yan Shouhong lost his life because he acted heroically and faced the tide of corpses alone. He had to be careful and cautious in everything for the survivors waiting for them to return home in the camp. Li Chunxian and another soldier held guns and explored the way ahead, while Gwen quietly followed behind. After the end of the world, many facilities lost power, and the hospital was no exception. The deep corridor occasionally heard the roaring of infiltrating zombies, which made people's backs shiver. However, even so, the 3 of them bravely walked to the stairs and prepared to go upstairs. Pay attention to your feet. More than a dozen corpses were lying on the steps, all 3 of them nervously stepping between them, afraid that the corpses on the ground would open their eyes. Gwen silently thought to himself, don't wake up, don't wake up. But sometimes what he was most afraid of would happen the more. A body on the ground that had not yet died grabbed Gwen's ankle and bit it, causing Gwen to scream in pain and attract the surrounding zombies. Li Chunxian first dealt with the zombie that had bitten Gwen's ankle, and then helped Gwen call his teammates to escape from the hospital. Fortunately, it was not far from the exit here. Gunshots were heard everywhere in the hospital, and the zombies in the darkness fell one by one. The 3 of them safely withdrew from the hospital and went outside. Their teammates were responsible for dealing with a few zombies that ran out. Li Chunxian opened Gwen's pants with a worried expression on his face. You were bitten. The shocking wound on Gwen's leg reminded Li Chunxian that he couldn't stay. He took the gun placed on the sandbag and aimed it at Gwen's head. Forgive me. Li Chunxian was about to pull the trigger when Gwen begged for mercy repeatedly. He didn't want to die yet, he knew he would turn into a zombie if bitten. I know that if bitten, it will turn into a zombie, but I still want to live for a while. Can you wait until I show signs of mutation before killing me? Li Chunxian, who couldn't bear it, decided to first bind Gwen and wait for him to completely mutate before killing him. Li Chunxian tied Gwen's hands and feet, so that Gwen would not pose a threat to them after becoming a zombie. The three of them spent an extremely agonizing hour in the trenches dug out by the military. Li Chunxian and another soldier were vigilant about the surroundings, with a few scattered zombies breaking into sight. However, strangely enough, the sound of gunfire did not attract more zombies. Li Chunxian turned his head to look at Gwen with concern, and he still lay there as if nothing had happened. Did you really get bitten? Li Chunxian couldn't help but have doubts when he saw that Gwen had not reacted for over an hour after being bitten. The person who had been bitten before him was slow for a few minutes and fast for a few seconds and turned into a zombie, but Gwen survived for over an hour. Seeing his appearance, it seemed that there were no other symptoms except for the pain of the bite. Gwen couldn't say for sure, but he was indeed bitten on the leg by a zombie on the stairs. Maybe he has an immune constitution. Another soldier said. If that's the case, then Gwen is the savior who saves this terrible world. Li Chunxian also felt that it was very likely that this was the case. If it were really the case, they could use Gwen's blood to research vaccines and save the world. Li Chunxian felt it was not time to delay and immediately set off back to the camp, asking Tao Xiaohong to try to contact the military and inform them that an immune body had been found in the camp. Li Chunxian felt guilty and untied Gwen. I'm sorry, Gwen. Sorry, I was bitten. I still know this preventive measure. How could Gwen blame Li Chunxian? He was bitten and faced the risk of becoming a zombie at any time. Li Chunxian was just making this move. Li Chunxian and his three companions drove back to the campsite. On the way, they called the campsite via radio, but received no response. All they heard was the rustling noise. Campsite, please answer. Campsite, please answer. Another soldier anxiously continued to call the camp, and it was reasonable to say that they had not come out far, so the radio should not be unable to contact the camp. After driving another distance, Li Chunxian keenly heard gunshots coming from the camp. The good news was that the radio was connected, and the bad news was that the people in the camp were attacked by zombies. Don't come back, the camp has fallen and zombies have entered through the gate. The person on the radio was Isa. She knew that Li Chunxian had already left, and she had to get in touch with him on the radio to tell them not to return to the campsite. The campsite had now become a slaughterhouse for zombies. After finishing her last sentence, Isa was bitten by the zombies and left with her eyes wide open. The sound of zombies chewing and things overturning could be heard on the radio. Li Chunxian accelerated his speed and rushed towards the campsite. He couldn't believe that the campsite would fall so quickly. He prayed in his heart that there must be survivors, there must be. With such a belief, Li Chunxian and the three of them arrived at the entrance of the campsite, and the gate opened wide. It is obvious that the zombies entered from here. Someone opened the door and let the zombies in. Li Chunxian discovered the body of the guard behind the gate, and the knife marks on his neck indicated that he was not killed by a zombie bite, but rather by someone wiping his neck from behind. With grief in his heart, Li Chunxian fired a shot at the guard's head to prevent it from turning into a zombie. In the past 2 days, they learned a new method. As long as the dead person's head was damaged, he would not stand up again. The camp was in chaos, with people howling everywhere. Li Chunxian threw a pistol to Gwen. Join us in eliminating them, and then I will protect you all the way to the research institute. As for where we should go, I don't know either. Li Chunxian and another soldier had a very high hit rate. They almost shot their heads and didn't waste a single bullet, making Gwen look very poor. As a teacher before the apocalypse, Gwen had no hit rate at all, and his foot injury almost made him fall to the ground. Chapter 4. Seeds of Hope. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A zombie was walking towards Gwen, anxiously aiming his gun. The remaining 3 bullets in the gun only hit one shot, not the head, but the foot. The painless zombie continued to move forward. Gwen had an immune system, but it didn't mean he wouldn't die. If the zombie bit his neck, Gwen would also die. At the critical moment, the sniper on the high platform helped to solve the zombie. Li Chunxian and the soldier heard gunshots and turned back to help Gwen. They fought all the way to the camp and perfectly cooperated with the sniper on the high platform, finding the dying Tao Xiaohong. "You're back." Tao Xiaohong held his last breath and waited for them. Then he pointed to the CD on the table and completely swallowed, his hands hanging straight down. They opened the CD that Tao Xiaohong had to open on her deathbed, which included a video, a brutal biochemical experiment. In the video, scientists fused the genes of dogs with easily contagious viruses, and a virus sample called Soul Lotus was sucked into a syringe. The subjects for the experiment were tied to an iron bed, including a familiar face, and Gwen beside them was actually inside. When the Soul Lotus was injected into the first person's body, the assistant on the side timed it and pressed the stopwatch, freezing it at 1 minute and 20.3 seconds. The person on the hospital bed mutated into a bloodthirsty zombie, and the rest remained for about a minute. When it was Gwen's turn, he was also injected with the Soul Lotus, and there had been no clinical reactions. They knew that Gwen's immune system had immunized against the virus. They took Gwen's blood and found that there was no Soul Lotus in his blood. Gwen's immune system not only immunized against the Soul Lotus, but even killed it. The video came to an abrupt end here, and no one knew why Gwen's immune system would kill the Soul Lotus. However, they were certain that the heavy rain was intentionally done by someone who wanted to put the world in danger, and then they used Gwen's blood to make a big profit by producing vaccines. However, what they never expected was that the rain mixed with the Soul Lotus spread all over the world, or that the Soul Lotus they planted all over the world, no matter what kind, was an unforgivable crime. When did I come here? Gwen doesn't remember being to this place before. It should be that your memory was erased by them using a magical drug. These bastards can even create zombie viruses. Li Chunxian gritted his teeth in hatred, not realizing that this disaster was actually initiated by humans themselves, to such an irreversible extent. Another soldier, while searching, found a note left by Tao Xiaohong in a drawer, with Prometheus written on it and a map on the back, marking their way to Prometheus. He wants us to send Gwen to Prometheus. The sniper also came down from the high platform and found the camp. "Flower season, you're not dead." Another soldier was extremely excited, and the sniper on the high platform was his own younger brother, who did not die in the tide of corpses. "Have you always been on the high platform?" Li Chunxian asked. If the flower season is always on the high platform, then he has no reason not to stop the person from opening the door. "I was eating and heard zombies invading, so I went to the high platform to shoot." The flowering season returns. "What about other snipers?" Hua Wu, another soldier, asked. "There are other snipers in this camp." "I don't know, they might have all been eaten, anyway I haven't seen them." Flower season spent so long shooting from the high platform and didn't notice any other snipers. "Who exactly opened the camp gate?" "Now they are surrounded by zombies, let's escape and investigate this issue first." Hua Wu and I broke through in front, trying not to use guns. "Unless absolutely necessary, the sound of firing will put us in danger." "Arrange everything," with Li Chunxian and Hua Wu leading the way, and Hua Ji protecting Gwen's safety from behind. The three of them are more aware of Gwen's importance than anyone else, and they will spare their lives to send Gwen to Prometheus, which is the place pointed out by Tao Xiaohong for them. Li Chunxian held down the head of a zombie and stabbed him in the brain with a knife. They were about to silently escape from the group of zombies, and if there was something, they would ask nearby groups of zombies to come closer. In the dark, someone fired a black gun on the oil barrel next to Hua Wu. The explosion sounded and Hua Wu was blown away, attracting zombies to look towards this side. Hua Ji quickly picked up Hua Wu to check the situation. The situation of Hua Wu, who was very close to the oil barrel, was not optimistic. The impact of the explosion shook him with a lot of internal bleeding. If he didn't send him to the hospital in time, he would only have to explain that he was here. In the end of the world, there were no signs of other campsites outside of their camp. Moreover, Dr. Tao Xiaohong also died in the mouth of the zombie. Hua Ji could only watch Hua Wu lie on his thigh breathing, and his life gradually withered away. No. Hua Wu couldn't make it through in the end. He smiled and wanted to touch Hua Ji's head for the last time, but his hand reached out and fell in mid-air. Hua Wu turned his head and slept forever in this camp. Let's go. Li Chunxian wanted to start the flower season, but lost his brother's flower season willpower and became depressed. He gave up his mission to protect Gwen and go to Prometheus, picking up his sniper rifle like a walking corpse and shooting wildly to vent his sadness. Only in this way can killing make him feel incredibly relaxed. Let's go. Li Chunxian did not continue to waste his words on the flower season. He empathized with the unpleasant feeling of his family or friends dying in the apocalypse. He left the map behind and then walked out of the camp with Gwen. Li Chunxian reluctantly took a last glance at the camp they had built by themselves, but before they could expand according to their own ideas, it was destroyed. Fortunately, Li Chuanshuan's will was not depressed. He had to take Gwen to Prometheus, where there would definitely be doctors who could use Gwen's blood to study drugs for dealing with the Soul Lotus. Are you okay? Li Chunxian expressed concern. I'm fine. Gwen said it was okay, but there was a group of people in his heart. He had no impression of participating in the experiment, and he desperately wanted to recall the details of the experiment. All he could think of was the impression of being knocked unconscious in the living room when he returned home. Before that, the more he thought about it, the more chaotic his logic became. He was knocked unconscious, and his wife couldn't possibly not have noticed me after work. It was also his wife who was being coerced. Gwen had too many reasons in his mind, and he had no idea what kind of virus could sweep the world in 3 days. Gwen decided to unravel these questions while on his way to Prometheus. Perhaps once he figured out everything would be over. Chapter 5. Moving forward. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The two of them drove to a store in search of supplies. The end of the world came too suddenly, so the things in these places have not been thoroughly searched, at least not yet. When everyone passes the most difficult stage, they will come out to search for supplies, and everything will become very scarce. Li Chunxian gestured for Gwen to wait at the door. He held his gun and entered the store alone. He couldn't lose Gwen anymore and had to protect his safety at any time. In places like this filled with unknown dangers, Li Chunxian certainly didn't allow Gwen to follow along. The light outside shone through the window, creating a glimmer of light for Li Chunxian, preventing him from being alone in the darkness. In order not to disturb the zombies, Li Chunxian turned off the flashlight under the barrel of the gun and packed the food on the shelves into his backpack one by one. He took many foods that were not easy to preserve, which would decay in the weeks of the apocalypse. Li Chunxian packed them into his backpack, which was also considered a useful item. "Uncle, can you take me with you?" After the shelf, a child obediently poked his head out and begged Li Chunxian to take him away with these foods. "Where are your parents?" Li Chunxian was puzzled as to why the child would appear here alone, so he asked about the whereabouts of his parents. "They were all killed by monsters." The child timidly grabbed onto the shelf and answered. "Let's go." Li Chunxian smiled and lifted the little guy's hair that covered his forehead. Li Chunxian put on his backpack and gained a lot from this trip, which was enough for the three of them to eat for a week. Before leaving, Li Chunxian followed the map on the checkout counter and wrote a paragraph on paper for flower season. "We will meet again. Li Chunxian." Gwen and the little one were responsible for counting things, while Li Chunxian sat in the driver's seat calculating their distance from Prometheus and silently calculating the approximate time needed. The distance from here to Prometheus was not close, and Li Chunxian finally calculated that it would take about 3 days. If nothing unexpected happened on the way, he could safely escort Gwen to Prometheus and end this apocalypse. In the blink of an eye, Li Chunxian and his team had already driven 3 hours from the searched store. During this time, Gwen had been silently watching the miserable road outside the car window. A city was like a coffin in an instant, filled with dead people, but living people had to live with fear. Even a few days ago, Gwen happily greeted his students, agreed to see them next week, and when he opened his eyes again, the world became like this. Gwen's mood was slightly low. Li Chunxian was also thinking about the campsite. He wanted to investigate who led the zombie swarm to the campsite, and in an instant, the entire campsite was destroyed. Many things came too suddenly. In this way, both of them continued their journey with their own thoughts in mind. The little guy they had taken in was surprisingly quiet, and he could see that their emotions were not very beautiful, so he sat quietly in the back seat, silently advancing along the way. Campsite Hua Ji picked up the gun of the deceased soldier and continued shooting. After calming down, he collapsed on the windowsill on the second floor and cried out. Faced with the devastated campsite, his deceased brother, and the fallen corpses, Hua Ji's heart was filled with mixed emotions. He sat next to Hua Wu's body and confided in him. When you were a child, you always said you would protect me, but now you want to be lazy and take a step ahead of me. Hua Ji also wanted to leave. He repeatedly pinned his gun to his forehead, but couldn't take it down. It wasn't because of fear, but because he had something more important to do. After the sadness, Hua Ji relied on the memory of a sniper to hold a pistol and grope to the place where someone had just fired a cold gun. The place was already empty, leaving only a shell case. Hua Ji's red eyes bent down to pick up the shell, tightly gripping it in his hand. He would make the person who killed his brother pay the price, he would definitely. At this point, the last survivor in the camp with resolute eyes walked out of the camp. He rode his motorcycle and passed by the shops that Li Chunxian and his companions had searched for. His intuition told him that Li Chunxian and his companions had come here before. As he walked into the shop, he saw the words written by Li Chunxian on the cashier. He then rode his motorcycle again and followed him towards Prometheus. Before he caught the culprit, he had to follow Li Chunxian to complete the last task assigned by Tao Xiaohong, which was to escort Gwen to Prometheus. The doctor there would study the antidote, and the so-called Prometheus was a study. The name is located in the southeast of the city of the imperial capital. Before setting off again, Hua Ji took out the shell and threw it to the ground. He wanted to carry the shell with him to constantly remind himself to avenge his brother. He carried the shell left by the murderer who killed his brother on his body, making him feel a bit self-deceiving. The sky is getting dark soon, and it is not wise to drive in the dark. Therefore, the three of them need to find a house near the parking lot and sleep in it for the night. They may encounter some unexpected situations at night. Li Chunxian gently pushed open a door and instinctively turned on the light. To his surprise, this house still had electricity, and the lights in the entire room lit up. However, the light also attracted nearby zombies to gather here, but the group did not realize this. Encountering such an electrically powered house was good news for them. If there is electricity, it means there is hot water, so you can take a good shower. Gwen opened the bathroom door with expectations, and as soon as he walked in, a woman put a knife around his neck, threatening him not to move around. Although Gwen wanted to call Li Chunxian, he obediently raised his hand to save his life. Fortunately, the woman did not have any malice, she was just afraid that Gwen and others were bad people. Who are you, why are you here, and where are you going again? My name is Gwen, and we're just here for lodging. We're going to Prometheus, where there are military personnel. After hearing Gwen's words, the woman chose to let him go. She knew he was from the military, but she was wrong. Gwen was not, but Li Chunxian was. Upon hearing the sound, Li Chunxian rushed to the bathroom and held up his gun, warning the woman, protecting Gwen behind him. She didn't mean to. Gwen was afraid that Li Chunxian would do something out of line, so he quickly explained to the woman. Li Chunxian put down his gun with half faith and half doubt, and the woman introduced herself to them. My name is Wu Xiaoyan and I am the owner of this house. The reason why this house still has electricity is because I have a generator at home. After the power outage in the apocalypse, I turned it on, but it also caused some trouble. Many people want to occupy this place, so I mistakenly thought you were just like them. Chapter 6. Secret Channels. You are listening at novelfull.audio. My name is Li Chunxian, and this is Gwen. Li Chunxian did not introduce himself and Gwen too much. He noticed that there were many doubts in Wu Xiaoyan's words. For example, Wu Xiaoyan once said that many people wanted to occupy this place, but they did not see any traces on the door when they entered, and the door was still not locked. He raised his gun again. Tell the truth, you are not the master here. Seeing Li Chunxian raise his gun again, Gwen's heart was in his throat. He lacked attention, so he didn't notice these doubts. She has already told us everything, don't make things difficult for her anymore. Gwen grabbed Li Chunxian's hand. The little guy outside the door shouted in terror. There are all monsters outside the door. Li Chunxian lifted a corner of the bathroom curtain, and the outside was densely packed with zombies. It must be the lights here. Li Chunxian quickly found out the problem, but now the problem is that the zombies are about to overthrow the front door, and Li Chunxian doesn't have time to ask Wu Xiaoyan. Now these zombies are the top priority. Gwen, take the little guy and Wu Xiaoyan to the second floor. Li Chunxian aimed at the door and squatted on the steps. He pulled out his magazine to check how many bullets were left. There were still 12 rounds left, but unfortunately, all the bullets were left in the car and not carried with him. It was obviously unrealistic to use these bullets to deal with so many zombies. Wu Xiaoyan, you said you are the owner of this house. Do you have a rooftop or something? Li Chunxian can only temporarily trust Wu Xiaoyan. This is a two-story small building with no rooftop, but there is an attic, maybe we can hide inside. Wu Xiaoyan thought for a moment and thought about it. There was very little time left for them, and zombies had already entered the room. Li Chunxian made a quick decision to let everyone hide in the attic, making it impossible for these guys to find them and leave on their own. Li Chunxian shot and killed several invading zombies. With only 12 rounds left, he fired and retreated into the bedroom on the second floor, locked the door, and gave them time to climb up the attic. In no time, the zombie destroyed the bedroom door and searched for the figures of 4 people in the room. The 4 of them hid in the narrow attic, afraid to make a sound, and the low roar of the zombies under their feet was very piercing. The blooming season who arrived here also noticed the situation here. He noticed Li Chunxian's parked car on the roadside and also found a brightly lit house, which was rare in the early post-apocalyptic period. He speculated that Li Chunxian and Gwen Shui were trapped in this house. Dee. During the flowering season, the sound of the horn attracted the zombies. They gave up searching for the 4 people, and the sound of the horn attracted most of the zombies. Li Chunxian jumped down from the attic and used a dagger to deal with the zombies left in the bedroom. He lay on the window and looked out. I knew you would come. He saw the familiar motorcycle, which was from Huaji. It was Huaji who helped them attract most of the zombies. Li Chunxian asked the 3 of them not to worry, as the crisis had not yet been resolved. When the time was ripe for the flower season, he rode his motorcycle slowly ahead, trying to steer the zombie swarm away and then turn back from another intersection to meet the crowd. Come on, come and eat me. Flower season is not only using horns to attract zombies, but also attacking them with words, and I don't know if they can understand. The journey was very smooth, and after feeling that the distance was enough, Hua Ji turned into another intersection and quickly circled around before returning to the front of the house. Hua Ji and Li Chunxian are gathering downstairs. I knew you would come. How could you have thought of leaving me a note in that store? How could you be certain that I would enter there? Because I understand you. Li Chunxian didn't expect that Hua Ji actually saw the note he left at the cashier. The other 3 people came down from the attic and appeared in front of the flower season. Are these 2 survivors you included? He looked at the little guy curiously, thinking he was easy to bully and wanted to tease him. Little one, I'm a bad person. I'm going to feed you to a zombie. What Hua Ji didn't expect was that the little one not only wasn't afraid, but also looked at Hua Ji with a silly gaze. Your trick of teasing a 3-year-old baby. They laughed out loud after a long absence, and it was the first time they had laughed so happily after the outbreak of the apocalypse. After cheering and laughing, Hua Ji asked Li Chunxian why he didn't continue his journey at night. Do we have to sleep here all night at night? The subtle question of the blooming season. It's not suitable to rush at night. Now, this power-cut street gets dark at night. Even if we have car lights and the car breaks down halfway, we need to be prepared to fight zombies in the dark. On the way to escort Gwen, Li Chunxian was so careful. It makes sense. When Li Chunxian said this, Flower Season also felt that rushing at night was a dangerous thing. Where is the bathroom? Since he wants to rest and tidy up here, he definitely needs to take a good wash. There. Wu Xiaoyan pointed to the bathroom door. Flower Season unloaded sniper guns and backpacks, went to the bathroom to take a shower, and 4 people sat around the table. They turned off the lights, and those zombies would be attracted by the lights. It's comfortable to take a shower with hot water. Hua Ji enjoyed the feeling of hot water washing down her skin comfortably, as if it was not the end of the world. When she pushed open the door, her brother would bring a towel. Thinking of her brother, Hua Ji's mood suddenly dropped a lot, and he punched the wall. After taking a shower, I walked out of the bathroom wiping my head with a towel. How about we bring the generator with us so we can have electricity all the way? Flower Season proposal. No, we can't fit it in our car. Li Chunxian also wants to bring a generator, but their car is a sedan, and there isn't much space originally used for loading things. If they were driving a truck when it came out, they might just do it that way. Where are you going? Wu Xiaoyan initially learned from Gwen that they were going to a place called Prometheus, but he wanted to confirm with Li Chunxian and the others whether what Gwen said was true. Seeing that Wu Xiaoyan had no ill intentions, Li Chunxian and his group also wanted to take her, so they told her everything. We need to send Gwen to Prometheus, he can stop everything. Upon hearing that Gwen could actually stop everything, Wu Xiaoyan almost killed him just now, and a sense of guilt surged in her heart. She didn't know how to say that she had just killed Gwen. Gwen noticed something was wrong with Wu Xiaoyan and guessed that it was because when he found the bathroom, she used a knife to hold her neck. You don't have to feel sorry. Gwen told each other in a voice that only he and Wu Xiaoyan could hear. Chapter 7. Mirror Flower and Water Moon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At the entrance of the campsite that was breached by zombies, Yan Shouhong's military uniform was covered in bloodstains. He stood here with the mother and daughter he had taken from the jaws of the zombie tiger. Yan Shouhong looked at the open door and the miserable situation inside, but there was no ripple in his heart. Roof, more than 10 hours ago, Yan Shouhong miraculously escaped from the group of zombies. He almost killed all the zombies on the rooftop alone, using only a dagger and gun stock. With breathless effort, he looked angrily at the spot where the helicopter was parked, and the people above abandoned him here in order to escape. One of them was still a brother who had suffered together before. At this moment, a group of people kidnapped the mother and daughter and wanted to complete a deal with Yan Shouhong. They admired Yan Shouhong's excellent fighting skills, and being able to escape from the group of zombies was not something that ordinary people could do. However, they discovered Yan Shohong's bite. "You are strong, but you have been bitten." The leader among them, who was familiar with the situation, came forward and tore open Yan Shohong's shoulder, leaving a vivid mark of a zombie bite. "We can give you the vaccine, but you have to agree to take us to your campsite, where we will treat it as a testing ground." The leader proposed that they have a vaccine, and Yan Shohong just needed the vaccine. "This is a good deal." Yan Shohong remained silent for a long time. He didn't want to agree, but the wounds on his back reminded him that he would become a zombie in the next moment. "Think about how your teammates did it." The leader's words undoubtedly changed Yan Shohong's erratic inner world. "Okay, I promise you." Yan Shohong happily reached a cooperation with this group of organizations claiming to have vaccines, leading the way by having his subordinates provide Yan Shohong with their vaccines. After receiving the vaccine, the zombie virus in Yan Shohong's body was temporarily eradicated. The leader was a chicken thief who deliberately gave Yan Shohong a vaccine to temporarily suppress the virus, in order to submit to himself and work for himself in exchange for the vaccine. Otherwise, he would only end up becoming a zombie. "The vaccine has also been injected, should you tell us the location of your camp?" The leader's question. Yan Shohong told them the address of the camp and also joined their organization. After receiving a satisfactory answer, the leader patted Yan Shohong's shoulder with satisfaction. "Welcome to join the Salvation Army." The leader left behind a subordinate and led the team to their camp. This group of people seemed to be very familiar with zombies and attracted a large wave of zombies with their voices. They first sent one of their subordinates to ride a motorcycle to the camp. He parked the motorcycle in the distance and secretly followed the fence. While the gate was open, Li Chunxian and his team went out to search for supplies. He touched the inside of the camp and had an inside-out cooperation with the Salvation Army outside. They opened the gate, and everyone was busy. No one noticed that an accident had occurred at the gate. "It's just a place full of mirrors and water." The leader of the Salvation Army is waiting for Yan Shohong to return at the gate, and their people are here to capture the residents who have been bitten and mutated, leading them to a large truck. "What are you doing with these zombies?" Yan Shohong did not understand the behavior of the Salvation Army in capturing zombies. "I can't tell you yet." The leader is not entirely at ease with Yan Shohong. He controlled Yan Shohong with the vaccine, but it does not mean that he can confidently reveal the plan of the Salvation Army. In the early stages of the apocalypse, some people avoided zombies while others were capturing them. The mother and daughter brought back by Yan Shohong were used by the Salvation Army to feed the zombies in the truck. The little girl begged the Salvation Army not to do so. Her crying instantly awakened Yan Shohong's conscience, and the recall disappeared in an instant. Yan Shohong watched coldly as the Salvation Army pushed the mother and daughter into the truck, and the corpses quickly covered them. "It seems that you have changed quickly." When Yan Shohong hesitated, the leader placed his hand on the gun at his waist, ready to shoot at any time. However, Yan Shohong's actions surprised him, and the survivors he desperately rescued were once again pushed into despair in front of him. Snipers who attacked Gwen and others in the dark came to report the situation. 3 survivors escaped from here, and one of them seemed to be Gwen, who had no mutation symptoms at the time. Upon hearing this, the leader's lips curved upwards, and Gwen, who had been rescued from the laboratory, was now being protected by someone. "Gwen, you can't escape my claws. Come back obediently and continue making vaccines for us." The sniper pointed at the Imperial City on the map and said, "I heard them say they are going to the Prometheus Institute in the Imperial capital. Things have become interesting." The leader is very happy to have discovered the traces of his vaccine producer today, and has also gained a capable general like Yan Shohong. "Today is a great day for our Salvation Army. Ha ha ha, Gwen, I will find you." The leader excitedly killed one of his subordinates, greedily licking the blood-stained blade. The people on site were frightened by the leader's appearance and dared not speak out. When all the transformed zombies in the camp were loaded into vehicles and stored in the warehouse, the leader and his team left. Before leaving, they lit a fire on the camp, which quickly caught fire and reached the arsenal. The bombs inside exploded, completely destroying the still infant camp. "Do you want to come with us and send Gwen to Prometheus together?" Li Chunxian asked. "Of course you can." Wu Xiaoyan was just trying to survive in this post-apocalyptic world with this escort team. Faced with Li Chunxuan's invitation, Wu Xiaoyan had no reason to refuse. "Welcome to join us." They shook hands with each other as a gesture of friendship. At night, Gwen tossed and turned and struggled to fall asleep. Some scattered memories tormented Gwen. He held his head and forced himself not to think about these things, but these memories lingered. In his memory, Gwen was kidnapped on his way to work and then went to a mysterious room where a group of doctors untied his clothes. Gwen simply sat up, leaned against the wall, and looked at the moon in the sky. The moonlight shone on the windowsill, and he tried to catch it with his hands by some strange means. Li Chunxian slept soundly on the nearby bunk. In his sleep, they successfully sent Gwen to Prometheus, where doctors used Gwen's blood to create a vaccine that could fight against the zombie virus. With the help of the vaccine, humans no longer fear zombies and launched a counterattack, rebuilding a civilized society. Hua Ji couldn't sleep either. During the day, his brother died in front of him like this, and that scene couldn't be forgotten in his lifetime. He would follow Hua Ji to the ground. According to the older generation, he couldn't let go until he drank Mengpa soup. He took out a photo of the two brothers before the end of the world from his pocket and fell asleep unconsciously. Chapter 8. The Salvation Army in the End of the World. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next morning, Li Chunxian waited for Wu Xiaoyan to pack her luggage and prepare to drive away from here. Before leaving, Hua Ji looked at the generator in the basement with reluctance. "Unfortunately, I can't take this good place with me. In the apocalypse of power and water outages, it is true that a good thing like a generator cannot be left behind." He approached Li Chunxian, who was on guard in front of the window, and discussed whether he could find a small truck nearby to bring this generator with him. "How about we find a small truck nearby? This generator will be of great help to our campsite for the next 2 days' rest, at least there will be hot water for bathing." Flower season requests. "No, look at how many zombies there are outside. If we go find a small truck, it will be difficult to deal with zombie swarms." Li Chunxian widened the curtains a bit, and the zombies in the yard that were lured away by the flower season last night returned here one after another. How they got out of poverty was a big problem, and there was no time to manage the generator and the small truck. "Have you all come back?" Flower season looked incredulously at the zombies wandering in the yard. These guys somehow returned here. Li Chunxian was very headache-stricken. Such a quantity could not be eliminated by his and Hua Ji's firepower alone. He was thinking of a way to escape from the zombie swarm silently and perfectly. How should I leave? Li Chunxian practiced many methods in his mind, such as shooting to attract zombies in the backyard during the flower season, but the backyard was also full of zombies, and then he found a tunnel. But who would dig a tunnel in his own home? Fortunately, none of them made a sound, and the zombies were just wandering in the yard without attacking the 5 people. Both sides were wasting time. Until noon, Li Chunxuan's head was about to burst. "Eat something, uncle." A can of beef appeared in front of Li Chunxian, and as he passed by, it was the little one who brought him food. "Thank you, little one." When Li Chunxian took the canned beef, an idea that he didn't know was feasible popped up in his mind. "We spread the flesh and blood of zombies on our clothes to conceal our scent, making these walking corpses mistakenly think we are of the same kind." Li Chunxian went upstairs and presented his plan to everyone. "Isn't this too disgusting? Are we going to open the zombies' chambers and pierce their stomachs?" Wu Xiaoyan vetoed this plan. She couldn't accept smearing the flesh and blood of a zombie on her clothes, as the disgusting feeling would make him vomit through the zombie swarm. If we don't find a way out, then the zombies outside will always find us. With so many zombies, where are we going? That's the only way for us at the moment. The blooming season doesn't spoil anyone. Is there no other good way? Wu Xiaoyan couldn't accept smearing the flesh and blood of zombies onto her clothes, even if it could help them escape the predicament. No, there are too many zombies outside, and I don't have any bullets in my gun. A strong attack is definitely not possible. Li Chunxian pulled out the magazine, and all 12 bullets inside were shot clean last night. We'll just wait for the zombie swarm to leave. Wu Xiaoyan said. They left a long time ago, are we still waiting until now? Hua Ji is very speechless to Wu Xiaoyan, and he admires her brain circuits. A few people were discussing there, while Gwen and the little guy stood by the window observing the movements of the zombies outside. Once the zombies were drawn in by their voices, no matter how many ways they tried, they were just decorations. After careful consideration, Li Chunxian came up with another good solution. Hua Ji and I walked through the zombie swarm, got the car, backed it up and put the trunk facing the door. Li Chunxian made modifications to the original plan. He and Hua Ji, as Special Forces soldiers, had never seen any major scenes before. In many evasive pursuits, they used animal corpses multiple times and became accustomed to such scenes. Gwen, the little one, and Wu Xiaoyan hid in a nearby room. Li Chunxian and Hua Ji dismembered the zombie corpses that had been piled up on the first floor last night, used a portable dagger to cut open the zombie's belly, pulled out the large intestine, and along with blood and other organs, slid down from the belly to the floor. They covered their entire bodies like this, swallowing saliva. They didn't know if this plan was feasible. They slowly opened the door, and the zombies' hands covered the crack in the door. They smelled the smell inside the door, and the zombies' blood covered up the human smell. The zombie lying at the door was from maniac to leaving, but they didn't. Discovering humans, they continued to wander in the yard. Li Chunxian opened the door lightly, and after Hua Ji left, he casually brought the door with him, saying that he was not afraid was all fake. Even the two soldiers, who were born in the military, felt a bit uneasy. The consequences of the plan's failure made the two of them feel uneasy. They could only shuttle through the group of zombies, walking in the direction of cars and motorcycles. Li Chunxian and Hua Ji separated in the middle of the yard, and when Hua Ji went to pick up a motorcycle, he used the engine sound of the motorcycle to lead the zombies away. Li Chunxian went to pick up the car and rewind it according to the plan to pick up the three of them. A few zombies approached Li Chunxian and sniffed him. Li Chunxuan's heart was raised to his throat, afraid that the zombies might smell any clues, and he couldn't escape with his wings inserted. Fortunately, these zombies didn't smell the human scent hidden under the zombie flesh and gave up. Li Chunxian still had some way to go when the sound of the motorcycle rang out. The group of zombies followed behind the motorcycle and gradually left the yard. Some zombies were fenced in the yard, about 5 or 6 in size. After Li Chunxian received the car, he started the vehicle and slowly backed it up. After seeing Li Chunxian pass, the three of them took it upstairs. Waiting, Li Chunxian calculated the distance and stopped, opened the trunk, and the three of them entered the car from the trunk. Li Chunxian was about to drive when someone strafed the vehicle. "Hide under your seat." Li Chunxian quickly called for several people to use stools as cover, but a bullet hit Li Chunxuan's shoulder. He painfully covered his bleeding shoulder and hit his figure. The only combat effectiveness shoulder was injured, and the few people who launched attacks on the four easily reached close range. "Put down your weapon and get off the car." The leading man shouted loudly, and the four of them opened the car door and walked off with their hands raised. "It's really Gwen." The leader lifted Gwen's chin and carefully examined Gwen. "You are." Li Chunxian had seen this leader in that video, and he probably knew a few people who came to find Gwen for what. "We are the Salvation Army." Thank you very much for helping us protect Gwen for so long, but now, you have to return the item to its rightful owner. The leader pretended to thank Li Chunxian, but in reality, he was plotting how to kill everyone except Gwen. Xiao Yan, bring my gun over. Upon hearing Xiao Yan, Li Chuanxuan's heart paused until the person got off the car. Chapter 9. The Seized Gwen. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Yan Shouhong walked towards the leader with a rifle in hand. The closer he got, the more Li Chunxian didn't believe his eyes. He saw Yan Shouhong being submerged by the corpses with his own eyes, but now he stood here unscathed, even serving the organization that claimed to be the Salvation Army. Gunshots rang out, and the Salvation Army killed 6 zombies who got lost in the yard. It seems that you two are old friends. The leader's glance revealed that the relationship between Yan Shouhong and Li Chunxian was extraordinary. I don't know him. Yan Shouhong never wanted to see this coward again. In his eyes, his act of risking his life to save people through the corpses must be equivalent to a hero. However, Li Chuanxuan's behavior, which he believed was unlikely and did not want to rescue, was considered cowardly. He did not look into Li Chuanxuan's eyes again. After hearing the sound of gunfire, Hua Ji immediately avoided the group of corpses on the path and wanted to return to the house to help. From a distance, he saw a group of people threatening Li Chunxian and others. He didn't care if there were zombies in the high-rise building, but set up a sniper rifle in the room on the 3rd floor, observing the situation here. Once the situation was not right, he would pull the trigger and take the leader away. Hua Ji's intuition told him who the leader of the Salvation Army was. Ha ha ha, then you can help me deal with them and keep Gwen. The leader didn't know how to deal with such words, so he simply handed over the task of killing Li Chunxian and his 3 companions to Yan Shouhong. The leader signaled with a glance, and his subordinates captured Gwen. The others used rough means to force Li Chunxian and the 3 of them to kneel, and they knelt on the ground waiting for death. Shoot me. Li Chunxian, who had already suffered a shoulder injury, was forcefully pressed by the leader with his fingers at the point of being shot, deepening the pain caused by the bullet. The piercing pain made Li Chuanxuan's forehead sweat cold, and his lips turned black due to the accelerated bleeding rate. Even if the leader showed mercy and let them go, they would still die from shock due to excessive bleeding. He revealed the location of your camp to us. The leader deliberately revealed this matter, stirring up hatred between the two. This news can be considered a bolt from the blue for Li Chunxian. I used this as a bargaining chip to join our Salvation Army, and he didn't hesitate to reveal the location of the camp. Li Chunxian clenched his fist in pain, stood up and wanted to rush over. Yan Shouhong shot Li Chunxian in the knee, causing him to lose his mobility. Li Chunxian fell to the ground on one side, and Yan Shouhong stepped on Li Chuanxuan's shoulder with his foot, with the muzzle of the gun pressed against his forehead. He truly deserves to be the subordinate I admire. The leader was very satisfied with Yan Shouhong's actions, which undoubtedly satisfied his abnormal psychology. Let them go. Gwen wants to use himself as a condition to make the leader let a few people go. Gwen, are you negotiating terms with me? The leader is precisely waiting for this sentence. I'll come with you and let them go. Gwen doesn't want to see his companion who came to Prometheus to protect himself suffer harm again, even if he has known Li Chunxian for less than a day. Okay, even if Gwen said that, then stop it, everyone. The leader asked his subordinates to remove the gun from Yan Shouhong's hand, and he wanted to use this to leave a terrifying seed in the hearts of these people. Take that person for treatment. The leader asked the doctors in the Salvation Army to remove bullets from Li Chuanxuan's shoulders and legs, which was completely different from the leader who had stopped him before. They didn't know what medicine was sold in the leader's gourd. However, I still have to take that woman away. The leader pointed at Wu Xiaoyan. His subordinates were very busy, and as soon as he spoke, a few of them dragged Wu Xiaoyan out of the yard. Other people, I'll bypass you today for Gwen's sake, including the sniper. On the 3rd floor, the flower season with guns was knocked unconscious from behind and carried to the yard. Since some of you want to kill me, I want to confiscate your weapons so that you don't retaliate against me. The Salvation Army looted the weapons of Li Chunxian and others. The Salvation Army rudely abandoned Li Chunxian, who had already taken out his bullets, and left with Wu Xiaoyan and Gwen. "Uncle, are you okay?" If it were other children, they would have been scared to cry long ago, but this little one actually had nothing to do, and did not cry even in the critical moments of life and death. The little one pulled Li Chunxian towards the room, and the smell of blood was likely to attract the nearby zombies back. Moreover, there were gunshots just now, and Li Chunxian, who was unable to move, could only become food for the zombies if he stayed outside. "Thank you." Li Chunxian, who was extremely weak, felt someone pulling him in a daze. He thought it was a zombie, but he didn't expect it to be a little guy. "Uncle, hold on." It was not easy to pull Li Chunxian with the strength of a little guy. He spent a lot of effort to pull Li Chunxian back to his room. There was no time to rest, and outside lay the unconscious flower season. There were already zombies approaching, and there was no time to rest. The little guy quickly ran to flower season's side, trying to wake him up. "Wake up, uncle." The little one shook Hua Ji's body. Hua Ji saw her late brother in her dream and shouted to Hua Ji to wake up quickly. With the dual efforts of the little one and her dream brother, Hua Ji suddenly woke up from the ground. Coincidentally, the zombie had already entered the yard. Hua Ji instinctively took out a gun to shoot, only touching the empty gun bag. Her weapon had long been taken away by the Salvation Army, and the zombie pounced on Hua Ji lying on the ground, wanting to bite his neck. The bare-handed Hua Ji was desperately resisting it, and there was nothing around to help her kill the zombie. The zombie was almost about to bite her. Compared to the crazy zombies, the neck of the flower season gradually depletes its energy. At a critical moment, the little one finds an iron pipe in the yard, piercing through the zombie's brain, and saves the flower season from being pressed under her body. Flower season didn't expect to be saved by this little guy. He had not yet recovered from the danger just now, and almost died at the mouth of the zombie. He fought against the zombie so close, facing the zombie so close for the first time. Flower season didn't want another time. Flower season pushed away the zombie still lying on his body, and the little guy pulled the frightened flower season back into the house. Soon, many zombies outside were attracted by the smell of blood, and they ate the bodies of their companions. Because the end of the world had just erupted, the zombies' bodies had not yet decayed. After Li Chunxian's wound treatment, they only need to recuperate for a period of time to recover, so they will have to stay here for the next few weeks. Their car was also destroyed by the Salvation Army, and the only thing that can provide transportation is the flower season motorcycle. It is somewhat inhumane to have a seriously injured patient ride a motorcycle, so they choose to stay in this house for a period of time until Li Chunxian's injury improves before going on the road. However, they are no longer responsible for escorting Gwen to Prometheus, and they do not know where they can go in this apocalypse. Chapter 10. Heart-to-Heart Talks. You are listening at novelfull.audio. We must rescue Gwen. Li Chunxian's last sentence before falling into a coma. During Li Chunxian's coma, Hua Ji went out alone to search for supplies. He wanted to find some medicine and gauze for Li Chunxian to replace every once in a while, so that the wound wouldn't be infected. Before leaving, he instructed the little guy to take good care of Li Chunxian. He trusted the little guy a lot, and from the moment he saved him, Hua Ji felt that this little guy was different from his peers. It was not until evening that Li Chunxian woke up from his coma. The little one had been guarding beside him as agreed, and when he saw Li Chunxian awake, he brought prepared food from the first-floor kitchen. "Little one, how come you understand so much?" Li Chunxian asked with heartache. "This little guy has grown up too much compared to his peers." "Because of my parents." During the 2 days spent with Li Chunxian, the little guy let go of his psychological defenses and told him all about his past. "What's wrong with your parents?" Li Chunxian asked. "They always domestic violence me, and every time I get beaten up, I run outside. My neighbor cares for me and has talked to him about many things. But when I found it useless, he taught me a lot and told me to be strong. There are other people waiting for me in this world." The little one whispered and twitched at this point. Even when he cried, he had to consider whether the crying would attract zombies. "What about your group of neighbors?" Li Chunxian continued to ask, knowing that he must completely open the little one's heart, not, otherwise under the ravages of this apocalypse, the little one is likely to breed many problematic psychology. "They all died, they were all killed by my parents." The little one remembered that previously undisclosed memory. The apocalypse has just erupted. The little one's parents were attacked by zombies outside, and their umbrellas accidentally fell to the ground. The two of them were exposed to the rain mixed with the soul lotus and also infected with it. Each person's attack time was different. When the little one's parents returned home, they both felt unwell and happened to see the little one sitting on the sofa. The two of them, who were worried about having nowhere to vent, wanted to beat the little one up again. As usual, the little one slipped out of the door and ran to the neighbor's house across from him. As soon as he closed the door in front of him, his parents froze on the ground in the back, their eyes turned white, and they lost their pain. They grabbed a big handful of hair and it would fall off. The two of them leaned in front of the mirror, their blood vessels swelling all over. They were very hungry, but when they opened the refrigerator door, they were not interested in the vegetables and eggs inside. Their eyes were all fixed on the remaining small piece of raw meat. The two fought fiercely for this piece of raw meat, and the sound of the fight made the guests downstairs. They went upstairs to demand an explanation, but the little one did not lock the door before leaving the house. Upon entering the room, the ground was in a mess and the two of them had completely mutated. They tilted their heads and looked like dead people. "Oh no, they are now living dead." The resident boldly walked towards the two of them, and they pounced on the resident like hungry wolves, biting his neck. The main artery was bleeding profusely, and blood flowed all over the ground. The two were content to hold the torn meat and nibble on it. The fallen resident mutated into zombies in less than a minute. The door was open, and the three zombies swaggered out. As soon as they left, they met several young men who had just come off the elevator. They thought these three were playing role-playing, and coincidentally, they also enjoyed watching a movie called Walking Dead. The apocalyptic-themed American drama Meet. "This is too realistic, isn't it?" The teenagers were discussing the realism of the three-person role-playing. The three of them looked at the young man approaching in confusion. The three of them, who had smelled the scent of humans, suddenly went crazy and joined forces to press one of them against the wall. The young man did not resist and excitedly expressed that they were interacting with each other. Just as they were about to use their phones to commemorate this moment, they posted a message on their social media to show off. The next second, the zombie bit him in the abdomen, and the others realized that this was not role-playing, but a real zombie. They were scared and scattered. The neighbor who heard the sound walked out holding the little one's hand to check the situation. In horror, they saw the little one's parents and another stranger biting at the body of a young man in the hallway. They cruelly divided the young man's body in half, and eagerly inserted their head into the gap. Even so, the young man's brain was not damaged, and he became a zombie without a body, leaving only one head to bite his teeth. Wang Chen ran, "You come into the house first, I'll go take a look." The neighbor walked over step by step, but his pace was very small. The zombie still noticed the approaching neighbor and immediately put down their unfinished body. They turned around and launched an attack on the neighbor. The neighbor had never seen such a scene before. They ran back in panic, feeling anxious and prone to making mistakes. The neighbor accidentally twisted his left foot, knocked his head against the wall, and fainted. A team of soldiers cleared up here, but they shot and fell 3 zombies squatting on the ground with blood in their mouths. As the neighbor was dying, they handed Wang Chen the keys to her store. If you encounter danger outside, just hide here. That shop didn't open today, it's very safe. The child who ran away in the building that day was you. Li Chunxian remembered that a few days ago, he had met Wang Chenran in a residential building. They were ordered to clean up the zombies and soothe the survivors in the building. They wanted to bring Wang Chenran back to the campsite, but Wang Chenran was very afraid of them. He grabbed the key and ran away. Li Chunxian wanted to follow up and inquire about the situation. At that time, he received an order that the cleaning team on the previous floor encountered trouble. Li Chunxian and his team went upstairs to help other teams clean up the zombies, but they forgot about having a child. Look at my memory, how could I keep you in such a dangerous place? However, looking back now, if we bring the little guy back to the campsite, they won't have the ability to save him when the campsite is breached. After all, he and Hua Ji survived in the entire campsite, as well as Gwen, who had just joined. This disaster came too unexpectedly and dealt a blow to the people in the greenhouse. After Li Chunxian finished speaking, he looked at his watch and saw that the sky outside was getting dark. What about that uncle? Li Chunxian asked. He said he went out this afternoon to find gauze and medicine for you, but he hasn't come back yet. The little one answered. It doesn't make sense. I've been out for so long and haven't come back yet. Li Chunxian couldn't help but worry about the flowering season in his heart. He is currently injured, and if something unexpected happens during the flowering season, it will be difficult for him and the little one to walk in this apocalypse alone. That uncle will definitely be fine. The little one took off the necklace he was wearing around his neck and clasped his hands together to pray for the blooming season.